The emergency beacon cut through the darkness of space like a dying star's last breath. On the bridge of the Velnari flagship, Crimson Dawn, Commander Zethkar barely glanced up from his tactical display as the distress signal reached their communication arrays. "Sir, we're receiving an SOS transmission," announced Lieutenant Pixel, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she processed the incoming data. "Origin appears to be from the 3rd planet of the Sol system." A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. Zethkar's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. "The Sol system? Those primitive Deathworlders are still alive?" The Velnari had cataloged Earth decades ago during their expansion through this spiral arm of the galaxy. What they found was a species so violent, so chaotic, that they lived on a planet that would kill most civilized beings within hours. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic plant life, and worst of all, the humans themselves seemed to thrive on conflict and competition. "What does the message say?" Zethkar asked, his interest piqued more by curiosity than concern. Pixel's translator worked to decode the primitive transmission. "They claim to be under attack by something called the Scourge. They're requesting immediate military assistance from any civilized species in the sector." The bridge erupted in laughter. Even the normally stoic navigation officer, a crystalline being named Kresh, vibrated with mirth. "Military assistance? From us? To them?" Zethkar stood from his command chair, his tall, thin frame casting shadows across the polished floor. "Record this moment, crew. The day the Deathworlders begged civilization for help." "Should we respond, Commander?" Pixel asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Oh, we should definitely respond," Zethkar said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Open a channel." The main screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of a human face. The creature looked exhausted, its primitive features marked by stress and what appeared to be recent combat. Behind the human, Zethkar could see smoke and the glow of fires. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, her voice steady despite the chaos visible behind her. "We are transmitting on all frequencies, requesting immediate assistance. An unknown hostile force has invaded our system. We have lost Mars colony and the Jupiter mining stations. Earth's orbital defenses are failing." Zethkar leaned forward, making sure his image was visible to the human. "Greetings, Primitive. I am Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Hegemony. We received your amusing plea for help." The human's expression didn't change, though Zethkar noticed her jaw tighten slightly. "Commander, with respect, this isn't a joke. Millions of beings are dying. If you have the capability to assist—" "Assist?" Zethkar interrupted, his crew chuckling behind him. "You misunderstand your position in the galaxy, Deathworlder. Your species is barely worthy of acknowledgement, let alone aid." Admiral Chen's image flickered as another explosion rocked whatever facility she was broadcasting from. "Commander, please. We're not asking for charity. We can offer compensation." "Compensation." Zethkar's laughter was genuine now. "What could your primitive world possibly offer the hegemony? Your crude weapons? Your violent culture? Your planet that would poison most civilized beings simply by breathing its atmosphere?" The Admiral's composure cracked slightly. "We're offering alliance, partnership. Our scientists have made breakthroughs in—" "Science?" Lieutenant Pixel spoke up, her voice filled with derision. "Commander, their most advanced vessels barely achieve light speed. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles. Their medicine still relies on invasive surgery." Zethkar nodded approvingly. His intelligence officer had done her homework. "You see, Admiral, your species has been evaluated. You are classified as a Class 7 aggressive primitive society. Your world is designated as a death world, unsuitable for civilized habitation. Your people are violent, chaotic, and fundamentally unsuited for galactic society. The transmission grew weaker as another explosion echoed from the human's location. Commander, regardless of your opinion of us, there are children on these worlds, families. If you won't help us fight, at least help with evacuation. The galaxy has no place for your kind, Zethkar said coldly. Your violent nature makes you a threat to peaceful civilizations. Perhaps this scourge is doing the galaxy a favor by containing your aggression. Admiral Chen's image stabilized for a moment, and Zethkar saw something change in her expression. The desperation was still there, but something harder had joined it. You're condemning an entire species to death. I'm making a practical decision, Zethkar replied. The hegemony's resources are better spent protecting civilized worlds from civilized threats. Your people chose to live on a death world, to embrace violence as a way of life. Now face the consequences of that choice. We're not the monsters you think we are, the Admiral said quietly. Aren't you? Zethkar gestured to one of his officers, who brought up a holographic display of Earth's history. Your species has been at war continuously for your entire recorded history. You've created weapons capable of sterilizing your own planet. You've driven countless species to extinction. You are, by definition, monsters. The communication channel began to break up as the human facility took more damage. Through the static, Admiral Chen's voice came through one final time. Then may whatever gods you believe in forgive you for this choice, Commander, because we won't. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in silence. After a moment, Zethkar returned to his command chair. Well, that was entertaining. Pixel, make a note in the ship's log. Sol 3 inhabitants have requested aid against hostile forces. Request denied due to species classification and resource allocation priorities. Yes, Commander, Pixel replied, already inputting the data. Should we notify Hegemony Command? No need, Zethkar said dismissively. It's not our problem. Besides, perhaps this scourge will spare us the trouble of dealing with the Deathworlders in the future. Hours passed as the Crimson Dawn continued its patrol route through the Outer Rim. The crew had largely forgotten about the human transmission, returning to their routine duties of monitoring trade routes and checking for pirates. It was during the night shift that Lieutenant Keksu, monitoring the long-range sensors, noticed something unusual. Commander, he called across the bridge, I'm detecting some odd readings from the Sol system. Zethkar had been reviewing supply reports, but the confusion in his officer's voice made him look up. What kind of readings? Energy signatures, sir. Massive ones, far beyond what the inhabitants should be capable of producing. Could it be this scourge they mentioned? Keksu's insectoid features twisted in concentration as he analyzed the data. Negative, sir. These signatures are familiar somehow, but they're orders of magnitude more powerful than anything in our databases. Zethkar stood and walked over to the sensor station. The displays showed swirling patterns of energy emanating from the Sol system's outer edge. How many vessels? That's just it, sir. I can't get an accurate count. The energy output is interfering with our sensors. But based on the gravitational distortions, Keksu paused, double-checking his calculations. Conservative estimate, several hundred large vessels. Impossible, Zethkar said automatically. Intelligence reports indicate the humans possess fewer than 50 interplanetary vessels, and most of those are mining and research ships. Sir, Pixel called from the communication station, I'm picking up transmissions from the area. They're encrypted, but the carrier signals are unusual. In what way? They're using quantum entanglement communication arrays, sir. Instantaneous transmission across vast distances. That technology is restricted to Class II civilizations and above. Zethkar felt the first stirring of unease in his chest. Could these signals be from the attackers? This scourge force? Negative, Commander, Keksu reported. The energy signatures don't match any known hostile configuration. These appear to be defensive formations. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Zethkar spoke. How long would it take us to reach the Sol system? At maximum speed, approximately 18 hours, sir. Set course. Maximum speed. Sir? Pixel looked confused. I thought we weren't going to get involved. Zethkar's mandibles clicked nervously. I want to observe. At long range. If there's advanced technology in play, the hegemony needs to know about it. As the Crimson Dawn altered course toward the Sol system, none of the crew spoke about the growing dread that was settling over them. The readings they were getting simply didn't match what they knew about human capabilities. Either their intelligence was completely wrong, or something very strange was happening in that distant star system. In the depths of space, other ships were making similar course corrections. Across the sector, various species had picked up the same energy readings that had puzzled Keksu. The Zephyrian Trade Federation diverted 3 research vessels. The Crystalline Collective sent a scout ship. Even the reclusive Void Walkers dispatched an observer. None of them knew what they were going to find in the Sol system. But all of them had the growing suspicion that their understanding of the galaxy's balance of power was about to change dramatically. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Chen stood before a massive view screen showing the tactical situation. Around her, the command center buzzed with activity as officers coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Status report, she ordered. All fleets are in position, Admiral, her tactical officer responded. The enemy forces are concentrated around Mars. They haven't detected our approach yet. Chen nodded, though her thoughts were still on the alien commander who had so callously dismissed their plea for help. She wondered if he had any idea what he had just witnessed the birth of. Signal all vessels, she said quietly. Begin Operation Righteous Fury. The response to that order would be felt across the galaxy. The Crimson Dawn dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors immediately overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what lay before them. Commander Zethkar stared at the main screen, his mandibles frozen in shock. Report, he managed to croak. Lieutenant Keksu's hands trembled as he worked his console. Sir, I'm reading. This can't be right. My sensors indicate over 2,000 vessels in formation around the system's outer planets. 2,000? Zethkar's voice rose an octave. That's impossible. Our intelligence clearly stated— Sir, Pixel interrupted, her 4 eyes wide with disbelief. I'm analyzing the ship configurations. These aren't the primitive vessels from our reports. These are warships. Advanced warships. The main screen shifted to show a closer view of the fleet formations. Sleek, angular vessels hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with what appeared to be energy shielding. Each ship was easily the size of a hegemony heavy cruiser, and there were hundreds of them arranged in battle groups throughout the system. How did we miss this? Zethkar whispered. How did our entire intelligence network fail to detect a fleet of this magnitude? Commander, called Navigation Officer Kresh, his crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. I'm detecting other vessels approaching the system. Looks like we're not the only ones who decided to investigate. Indeed, across the system's edge, ships from a dozen different species were taking up observation positions. The Zephyrian research vessels, the crystalline scout ship, even a massive Void Walker observation platform had materialized from their dimension-bending travel. Sir, incoming transmission, Pixel announced. It's from the Zephyrian lead vessel. The screen split to show Captain Thalas of the Zephyrian Trade Federation, her blue-scaled features tight with concern. Commander Zethkar, I assume you're here for the same reason we are? Captain, Zethkar acknowledged. Your sensors confirm what we're seeing. A massive human fleet? Yes. But that's not the strangest part. Thalas gestured off-screen. Show him the inner system readings. The main screen switched to a long-range scan of the inner Sol system. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about human technology. Massive orbital defense platforms surrounded Earth, each one bristling with weapon arrays that registered as Class A military hardware. Similar installations defended the remaining human colonies. Where did they get this technology? Zethkar asked, though he wasn't sure if he was asking Thales or himself. That's what we need to find out, came a new voice. The screen split again to show Commander Vexhai of the Crystalline Collective, his transparent body shimmering with internal light. My people have been analyzing the energy signatures. These weapons, they're not just advanced, they're revolutionary. Before anyone could respond, a new alert chimed across all the observing vessels. Something was happening in the inner system. Sir, Keksu called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. The human fleet is moving. All vessels are accelerating toward Mars. The observers watched in stunned silence as the massive human armada began to close on the red planet. Intelligence reports had indicated that Mars was where the mysterious scourge had established their foothold. Now, finally, they were about to see what humanity was truly capable of. Commander, Pixel said softly, I'm reading the Scourge fleet composition around Mars. Over 800 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts and dozens of heavy cruisers. Zethkar nodded grimly. The Scourge were a known quantity in the galaxy. They were ruthless, efficient, and their technology was on par with most hegemony equipment. Any civilized fleet would need at least a 3-to-1 advantage to engage them successfully. The humans were attacking with barely 2-to-1 odds. They're going to be slaughtered, Thales said quietly. But as the human fleet approached Mars, something unexpected happened. Instead of charging directly into battle, the ships began to spread out in complex formations. Groups of vessels took position at specific coordinates around the planet, creating what appeared to be a 3-dimensional web. What are they doing? Commander Vexhai asked. The answer came moments later as the human fleet opened fire. The space around Mars erupted into a storm of energy, unlike anything the observers had ever seen. Instead of conventional plasma beams or particle cannons, the human weapons fired what appeared to be concentrated bursts of pure energy that bent and twisted through space before striking their targets. Impossible, Keksu breathed. Those are gravitational manipulation weapons. The technology for those doesn't exist. It does now, Zethkar said grimly, watching as Scourge vessels were torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore conventional shielding entirely. But the humans weren't finished. As the Scourge fleet tried to regroup, human ships began firing at empty space. At first, it seemed like a waste of ammunition, until massive Scourge vessels suddenly materialized where the shots had been aimed. They're predicting cloaked vessel positions, Thales said in amazement. How? The answer came from an unexpected source. A new transmission reached all the observing vessels simultaneously, not from their own ships, but from the human fleet itself. Attention, foreign observers, came Admiral Chen's voice. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are witnessing the defense of human space against hostile invaders. Your presence is noted and will be tolerated as long as you do not interfere. The transmission cut off, leaving the alien observers in stunned silence. Not only had the humans detected their supposedly stealthed observation positions, but they had done so while conducting a major battle operation. How did they... Thales began. Sir, Keksu interrupted, his voice filled with awe. I'm reading massive energy spikes from the outer system. Something big is coming online. The sensors showed energy readings that dwarfed even the impressive human fleet. Somewhere beyond the orbit of Pluto, something enormous was powering up. What is that? Zethkar demanded. The answer came as a massive structure began to materialize on their screens. It was a space station, but one larger than some moons. Weapon arrays that would make a hegemony dreadnought look like a fighter craft covered its surface, and its energy output registered as a Class S strategic weapon. A battle station, Commander Vexhai whispered. They built a battle station. But the humans still weren't finished showing their capabilities. As the battle around Mars continued, with Scourge vessels falling in increasing numbers, a new development caught everyone's attention. "Sir," Pixel called out, "I'm detecting massive hyperspace distortions throughout the system. Something else is arriving." What emerged from hyperspace made even the impressive fleet already in action look small. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities materialized in formation, followed by carrier vessels that immediately began launching fighter craft by the thousands. Then came ships of configurations none of the observers recognized. Vessels that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, others that appeared to be partially phased out of normal space. "How many fleets do they have?" Thales asked in a small voice. The question was answered by Admiral Chen herself as another transmission reached the observers. This time, her image appeared on their screens, and behind her, they could see a command center that spanned what looked like several city blocks. "I see our observers are still with us," Admiral Chen said, though her attention seemed focused on tactical displays showing the annihilation of the Scourge fleet around Mars. "I thought you might be interested to know that what you're witnessing is not our full military capability. This is a single-sector defense fleet." She paused, allowing that information to sink in before continuing. "You see, when the galaxy abandoned us to face extinction alone, we decided we couldn't rely on anyone but ourselves. Over the past 50 years, while you dismissed us as primitive Deathworlders, we've been preparing, learning, advancing." The tactical display behind her showed the Scourge fleet in full retreat, their remaining vessels fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. The human fleet didn't pursue. Instead, they began systematic recovery and repair operations with efficiency that spoke of extensive experience. "Our scientists didn't just make breakthroughs," Admiral Chen continued. "They made revolutions, gravitational manipulation, quantum entanglement communication, dimensional phase technology, matter-energy conversion on an industrial scale." Commander Zethkar found his voice. "How?" he transmitted back. "How did you advance so far so quickly?" Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Necessity, Commander. When you're surrounded by a hostile galaxy, when every other species sees you as monsters to be contained or eliminated, you learn to innovate or you die. We chose to innovate." "The hegemony isn't hostile," Zethkar protested weakly. "We maintain peace." "By abandoning anyone who doesn't meet your standards of civilization," Admiral Chen cut him off. "By deciding who deserves to live and who deserves to die based on your own prejudices. Tell me, Commander, how many other species have you condemned to extinction with your indifference?" Zethkar had no answer for that. "But that's not why I'm talking to you," Admiral Chen continued. "I'm talking to you because the Scourge forces you just watched us defeat were not a random attack. They were sent by someone who gave them detailed intelligence about human capabilities and defensive positions, intelligence that was woefully out of date." The implications of that statement sent chills through every observer. Someone had hired the Scourge to attack humanity, using intelligence that was decades old. "We know who sent them," Admiral Chen said quietly, "and we know why. The question now is what we're going to do about it." Behind her, the tactical displays began showing something that made all the observers' blood run cold. The massive human fleet was reorganizing into new formations. Not defensive formations this time, but assault configurations. "You have 48 hours, Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. 48 hours to identify and surrender the parties responsible for this attack on human space. If you choose not to comply..." She gestured to the tactical display, which now showed fleet positions throughout the local sector of the galaxy. We will come looking for them ourselves. The transmission ended, leaving the alien observers staring at displays that showed human fleets positioned to strike at over a dozen different systems simultaneously, fleets that had apparently been in position for some time, waiting for this moment. Commander Zethkar stared at the screen long after Admiral Chen's image had faded. Around him, his crew worked in stunned silence, processing data that challenged everything they thought they knew about the galaxy's balance of power. The Deathworlders, it seemed, had been preparing for war, and now that war was about to begin. The 48 hours passed like a death sentence countdown across the galaxy. In council chambers, command centers, and diplomatic facilities throughout known space, alien civilizations frantically tried to piece together who had contracted the scourge to attack humanity. Commander Zethkar had not slept since Admiral Chen's ultimatum. The Crimson Dawn remained at the edge of the Sol system, along with a growing number of observer vessels from other species. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the deadline expired. "Sir," Lieutenant Pixel called from her station, her voice tight with exhaustion. "I'm receiving priority transmissions from multiple sources. The Hegemony Council, the Zephyrian Trade Federation, even the Void Walkers are all trying to establish contact with Earth." "Any responses from the humans?" Zethkar asked. "Negative, sir. They're maintaining communication silence, but their fleet positions haven't changed." Zethkar studied the tactical display that showed human fleets positioned throughout the sector. Each formation was perfectly placed to strike at major political and economic centers. The precision was terrifying. "Commander," Navigation Officer Kresh spoke up, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "I've been analyzing the human fleet positions. The mathematics are elegant. They've positioned their forces to maximize psychological impact while minimizing their own exposure to counterattack." "Explain." "They've targeted systems that are symbolically important but lightly defended. Government seats, trade hubs, cultural centers, places where the loss would be felt throughout the galaxy, but where they won't face significant military resistance." The implications sent a chill through Zethkar's spine. "They're not planning a war of conquest. They're planning a war of punishment." "Incoming transmission," Pixel announced. "It's Admiral Chen." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Chen standing in what appeared to be a different command center than before. This one was even larger, with holographic displays showing real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. "Observer vessels," Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute resolve. "The deadline has expired. Despite having 48 hours to investigate, no government, no council, no federation has provided us with the identity of those responsible for contracting the scourge attack on human space." She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "However, we have not been idle. Our intelligence networks have been active throughout the galaxy for longer than most of you realize. We know who hired the scourge. We know why. And we know that several of your governments knew about it and chose to remain silent." Behind her, the holographic displays began showing detailed intelligence reports. Shipping records, communication intercepts, financial transactions, a paper trail that painted a clear picture of conspiracy. The attack on human space was organized by a coalition of 3 powers, Admiral Chen continued. The Hegemony High Command, seeking to eliminate what they saw as a growing threat to galactic stability. The Corporate Council of Veltar, wanting to claim human space for its resource extraction operations. And the Zephyrian Trade Federation, hoping to monopolize the shipping routes that pass through our system. Commander Zethkar felt his world collapse around him. He looked at the screens showing Captain Thalis of the Zephyrians, saw her expression of shock and fear, and realized that none of them at the field level had known about their government's conspiracy. "The evidence is overwhelming," Admiral Chen said, as documentation scrolled across the screens. Communications between Hegemony, Admiral Kolseth, and Scourge leadership. Payment transfers from Veltar corporate accounts. Shipping manifests showing Zephyrian vessels carrying Scourge supplies to staging areas. "This is impossible," Zethkar transmitted. "Admiral Chen, surely there's been some mistake." "No mistake, Commander," Admiral Chen replied, looking directly at him. "Your own High Command classified humanity as a threat level 7 emerging civilization and recommended preemptive containment through proxy force application. The order was signed by Admiral Kolseth himself 6 months ago." The words hit Zethkar like a physical blow. He had served under Admiral Kolseth for decades, had trusted him implicitly. To learn that his superior had ordered the genocide of an entire species. "Admiral Chen," Captain Thalis transmitted, her voice desperate. "Many of us had no knowledge of our government's actions. Surely you can distinguish between the guilty and the innocent?" Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. "We are aware that not everyone supported these decisions, Captain, which is why our response will be targeted." The holographic displays behind her shifted to show new fleet movements. Human vessels were breaking from their holding positions and beginning to move toward their targets. "In approximately 6 hours, human forces will arrive at 3 locations," Admiral Chen announced. "The Hegemony High Command facility at Nexus Prime, the Corporate Council headquarters at Veltar Central, and the Zephyrian Trade Federation Council chambers at New Zephyr." "You're declaring war on half the galaxy," Zethkar protested. "No, Commander. We're delivering justice to those who declared war on us." Admiral Chen's voice was ice-cold. "The facilities I mentioned will be destroyed. The leaders responsible for this conspiracy will face trial for genocide, and the galaxy will learn that humanity does not forgive or forget." "The casualties," Captain Thalis whispered. "There will be thousands of innocent beings at those facilities." "There are evacuation protocols in place," Admiral Chen replied. "We're not monsters, despite what your propaganda might claim. Every being at those facilities will receive exactly 1 hour's warning to evacuate before our fleets arrive. Whether they choose to use that time wisely is up to them." Commander Vexhai of the Crystalline Collective materialized on the communication channel. "Admiral, this level of retaliation will destabilize the entire sector. The economic disruption alone will be a fraction of the disruption caused by our extinction," Admiral Chen cut him off. "Your concerns about stability ring hollow, Commander. Where was that concern when the decision was made to eliminate our species?" The transmission shifted to show a wider view of the command center, revealing the true scope of the human operation. Hundreds of officers coordinated activities across dozens of star systems. Intelligence flowed in real time from sources throughout the galaxy. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a demonstration of capabilities that none of the aliens had imagined humanity possessed. "You want to know how we advanced so quickly?" Admiral Chen asked, as if reading their thoughts. "You want to know how a primitive species developed technology that surpasses your own." She gestured to a display showing the timeline of human development over the past 50 years. "When we first detected alien civilizations in our sector, we tried to make contact. Do you know what we found? Species that dismissed us as violent primitives, governments that classified us as threats to be monitored or eliminated, trade federations that saw us only as potential resources to be exploited." The display shifted to show intercepts of alien communications about humanity dating back decades. "We learned that we were alone in a hostile galaxy. So we did what humans do best. We adapted. We prepared. We turned our supposed primitive nature into our greatest strength." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "You call us violent," Admiral Chen said with a cold smile. "You're right. We are violent. We've been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. While your species achieved peace through homogeny, we achieved strength through conflict." The displays began showing human military installations throughout their space. Not just the fleets they had seen, but ground-based weapon platforms, orbital defense networks, and mobile strike forces positioned throughout human territory. "You call us chaotic," Admiral Chen continued. "You're right about that, too. Our chaos is what makes us unpredictable. While you plan campaigns through committees and councils, we adapt and improvise in real time." "You call us primitive," she said, her voice rising with conviction. "But our primitive nature gave us something you lost long ago: the hunger to grow, to learn, to become more than we were. While your civilization stagnated in comfortable superiority, we never stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible." The command center around her buzzed with activity as reports came in from across the galaxy. Human intelligence assets were providing real-time updates on the evacuation of the targeted facilities. Some were complying with the warning, others were trying to mount defenses. "Admiral," Commander Zethkar said quietly, "what happens after this? Where does this end?" Admiral Chen looked at him for a long moment before answering. "That depends on the galaxy, Commander. Humanity tried cooperation and was rejected. We tried diplomacy and were ignored. We tried hiding and were hunted. This is what's left." "So you'll rule through fear?" "No, Commander. We'll rule through respect. The galaxy will learn that humanity is not to be underestimated, dismissed, or targeted. We'll take our place among the galactic community not as supplicants asking for acceptance, but as equals demanding recognition." The displays showed the first human fleets reaching their targets. At Nexus Prime, the Hegemony High Command facility was in full evacuation, with ships streaming away from the massive complex. At Veltar Central, the corporate council was frantically trying to negotiate, transmitting offers of compensation and apologies. At New Zephyr, the Trade Federation was attempting to mount a defense with their security forces. "1-hour warning has been given," Admiral Chen announced to the observing vessels. "All facilities have the opportunity to evacuate. What happens next is their choice." The observers watched in tense silence as the countdown proceeded. Human fleets took position around each target, their weapons powered but not yet firing. The precision of their movements, the coordination between widely separated forces, demonstrated a level of military sophistication that made the galaxy's established powers look amateur by comparison. At exactly 1 hour after the warning, the human fleets opened fire. The destruction was swift and absolute. Weapons that seemed to exist partially outside normal space tore through shields and armor as if they weren't there. The massive Hegemony Command facility, built to withstand siege warfare, crumbled under focused gravitational manipulation that crushed it like an eggshell. The corporate council headquarters simply vanished, consumed by what appeared to be controlled antimatter reactions. The Zephyrian Defense Fleet was systematically disabled and then forced to watch as their government center was methodically dismantled piece by piece. In less than 30 minutes, 3 of the galaxy's most important power centers had been erased from existence. "My God," Captain Thales whispered. "This is what happens when you threaten humanity with extinction," Admiral Chen said calmly. "This is what happens when you underestimate what desperate beings can accomplish when they have nothing left to lose." Commander Zethkar stared at the tactical displays, showing the smoking ruins of facilities he had considered untouchable. "What now?" he asked. "Now, the galaxy learns a new reality," Admiral Chen replied. "Humanity is no longer a minor species to be ignored or eliminated. We are a major power with the technology and will to defend ourselves and our interests. And those responsible for the conspiracy are being taken into custody as we speak." The displays showed human special forces operations at locations across the galaxy, precisely targeted strikes that captured specific individuals while leaving surrounding areas untouched. They will face trial for attempted genocide. The galaxy will see justice done. Commander Zethkar felt a mixture of horror and awe. In less than 72 hours, His understanding of the galactic order had been completely shattered. Humanity had revealed itself not as the primitive Deathworlders they had been dismissed as, but as the galaxy's newest and perhaps most formidable power. "Admiral," he transmitted, "what happens to those of us who were just following orders?" Admiral Chen studied him for a moment. "That depends, Commander. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to see humanity as something other than monsters to be contained?" Zethkar thought about the precision of the human operations, the care taken to minimize innocent casualties, even while delivering devastating punishment to the guilty. These weren't the actions of the chaotic primitives he had been taught to expect. "Yes, Admiral. I think I am." Admiral Chen nodded. "Then perhaps there's hope for the galaxy after all. But understand this. Humanity will never again be dismissed, ignored, or threatened. We've taken our place among the stars, not through permission, but through strength. The age of being the galaxy's underdogs is over." The transmission ended, leaving the alien observers to contemplate a galaxy that had changed forever. In the span of 3 days, humanity had gone from dismissed primitives to a force that had brought the galaxy's established powers to their knees. And in the depths of space, more human fleets continued their patrols, ensuring that the message had been received and understood. The Deathworlders had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.